Hi guys, how you going? Campbell here from Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're having an amazing day. And as always, autodidactic means to be self-educated. And guys, you want to be self-educated because if you're believing what the mainstream is trying to tell us, you're going to be pretty confused. All right, now, so what I've been thinking about, I've done a couple of videos on hidden star forts recently that have been buried. So I've just been thinking about ground levels and what's been going on. So let's see what science says about ground levels. So why do we have to dig so deep to uncover ancient ruins? Now this is from sciencefocus.com. So this is, a science website as far as I can tell. All right. There is a survivorship bias at work here. Buildings and monuments left exposed on the surface don't last very long. Humans steal the best bits to reuse in other buildings, and erosion wears everything else to dust. So the only ancient ruins we find are the ones that were buried. What's an ad? Yeah. Okay, so we only find the ones that were buried, apart from the pyramids, the Sphinx, Pumapunku, Teotihuacan, all the stuff through South America. I mean, so much of this is still above ground, but okay. It is true that, humans do go along and they sort of plunder ancient sites. Obviously, only the small stuff, they can't move these megalithic stones, but let's keep reading. But they got buried in the first place because the ground level of ancient cities tended to steadily rise. Settlements constantly imported food and building materials for the population, but getting rid of getting rid of waste and rubbish was a much lower priority. New houses were built on top of the ruins of old ones. Hauling away rubble was labour intensive, and it was much easier to simply spread it out and build straight on top. Okay, so if they had rubble from old houses, why weren't they reusing that rubble to build their new houses? Wouldn't it be less labour intensive to use the rubble around to rebuild a house than to go and get new stone and bring it in? Also, this bit about, they're bringing lots of, food waste and rubbish and just leaving it all over the ground and stuff. I mean, I really don't think that they were that, excuse me, I don't think that they were that unhygienic. And obviously if they were, then there would have, there would have been disease and stuff rampant. They would have had, rat plagues and all types of stuff. So this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Let's keep going. Rivers periodically flooded and added a layer of silt, while in dry regions the wind was constantly blowing in sand and dust. The Sphinx was buried up to its head in sand until archaeologists re-excavated it in 1817. Now that's true. Okay, so in places like deserts where there is no vegetation holding the soil together, and when that sand's blown, it will basically mound up against anything it hits. So if you have a wall or a structure or a sphinx or whatever, it will mound up against one side of that, against the sides depending on which way the wind's blowing. But over time you could, you wouldn't bury something like the Sphinx, because the Sphinx was actually, it's in a temple, or what do they call it? The Sphinx temple, I think they call it temple, but it's carved out of solid sandstone, and it's down in the ground, so it would have got filled up, like that hole would have got filled up, and that could definitely happen. But I just want to say here, it says rivers periodically flooded and added a layer of silt. So still talking about Egypt, we all know that the reason that we're told that Egypt was such a huge civilization is because every year the Nile periodically flooded and added a layer of silt, which they then farmed in and grew their crops in. But if you look at Egypt, Egypt's probably one of the places on Earth that has the most things above ground that aren't buried. Sure, there's stuff that's buried, but most of the stuff that's buried in Egypt looks like it was built under the ground or in the ground. No doubt there's other stuff that was buried, but to say that silt is building up the layer, I mean, and when we're told that what Egypt was running as a civilization for 4,000 years, 4,500 years, it's a lot of silt every single year when that river flows. So why isn't everything covered? You know, when ancient towns were abandoned entirely, plant seeds quickly took root and created more bulk from the CO2 they pulled from the air. Now, I'm not even really sure what they're trying to say there. Their roots stabilized the soil, created from rotting plant matter, and the layers gradually built up. Okay, so what it seems like they're saying is, seeds blew in and they took root. Now, this more bulk from the CO2 they pulled from the air, I have no idea what they're trying to say. Are they trying to say because humans weren't there was more CO2 in the air so they could grow bigger? I mean, as you can see, this explanation just doesn't make sense at all. It's just like someone's just made it up, which, well, they have. Then their roots established, and basically they're trying to say here that the layers have built up through rotting plant matter. I mean, how long do you think that would take? I mean, have you ever seen, where they clear land or out in the desert, and they try and grow things? When the plants die, they just break down and blow away. They don't start building up layers of dirt. I mean, maybe in the tropics you could talk about that, but so that's the explanation from science, guys. That doesn't make sense to me. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. Now this is, and I searched for this, why are things buried, what makes land levels rise, all this, and there's not much out there. So this is one. This is basically, this is called Straight Dope. Don't know who he is, but he's basically just saying the same thing. Case of, he says, it starts with lots of things are buried, already, but then he basically just goes into, shoddy home construction, so they fell over and they built things on top of them. Here, trash and sewage all piled up in the streets, because they just all lived in filth. Because, that's what we're told about the past, right? They were just, totally stupid, filthy, unintelligent beings. Obviously, that's where we came from, right? And yeah, this guy's saying the exact same things that last one. He's just expanded on it, basically bringing in rubbish, buildings collapsing, putting it on top. He does say also that rivers flooded and sand blowing. And that's basically the story. I found this one. This is an archaeology site. Why do archaeologists dig? This is iparchaeology.com. Over time, evidence from the past becomes buried under dirt, rubbish, rotting vegetation and soil. So these guys are saying the same thing. Before modern rubbish collection and landfill sites, rubbish was buried near your house, sometimes after laying around above the ground for quite a while. Planning laws did not exist and shoddy building techniques were common. Houses often fell down. Houses built of wood, burnt, they rotted down. People built on top of them. This is what we're told. Okay, so let's have a look at, this is a list of Roman hoards. Now, hoards is just basically where you find, treasure, I guess. It's coins and, trinkets and statues and things like that. So this is just a list of what they've found. Now this wouldn't be the entire list, so it's all different dates, but you can see this is what they found under the ground in the UK, and they're telling us it's all Roman. Now, we all know there's questions about, the Roman Empire. Did it exist at all? Or at least did it exist in the form we're told it existed? But look at all these. So there's, and then there's a heap more down here. There's hundreds of these things that they've found. Hundreds of different sites, so they're all buried under the ground. So how, this is what this is the question: how did they get under the ground? We're told that, it's all about wind blowing in and rivers flooding and people bringing rubbish in. But if you've got a hoard, a cache of gold coins or something, I mean, what are they saying? That you put it on the ground and then you cover it up in your rubbish? It doesn't make sense. Obviously, you could bury it. But I mean, for so many things to be buried, I mean, who runs? It doesn't make sense, guys. Not to me, anyway. Leave me comments, please. Let me know what you're thinking. Okay, so here we go. Archaeologists find 10,000 objects from Roman London. Discoveries include writing tablets, thousands of pieces of pottery, and a large collection of phallus-shaped luck charms And just have a look at this. You know, this is someone's fingers, obviously, so that's a very, very small carving. And look at how intricate it is. You know, and this is what, 2,000 years old, around about, they're telling us. And at the same time, they tell us these people had no technologies, that they were just basically serfs and farmers, you know, living in sort of, what do you call them, kingship states, you know, our little states running around fighting each other, uneducated, all this kind of stuff. Now, to build this, I'm not sure what it's made out of, some kind of stone. But you would need the time to start with, then just to think about it, and you know, spare time, what do I do? Then you need the time to create the skills, to create the tools, all these things. And obviously you don't start with something this intricate. This would take, you know, a couple of generations at least to get this good and passing down skills. So we're not told there was lots of artisans doing this, but this stuff is all over the place. So again, what they're telling us about history is not correct. And I just want to get this bit. So they found 10,000 objects, and down here it says the horrible working conditions in a sodden trench up to 7 meters deep along the buried river resulted in a startling preservation of timber, including massive foundations, building fences standing to shoulder height, and remains of a complex Roman drainage system, as well as the largest collection of leather from any Roman site, bone and even straw baskets, which would have all crumbled into dust centuries ago on a drier site. Okay, so 7 meters underground. Okay, and this is Romans. So the Romans were in ruled England. I'm pretty sure it was around AD 40 to about the 300s. I think that's correct. I'll have to check my dates. But basically they were there, you know, 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So they're telling us that this, you know, if you believe what scientists say about how ground levels rise, they're saying that this rose 7 meters just from rubble and rubbish and rotting plant matter. That's a lot, you know. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? You know, maybe that dirt came from somewhere else. Some kind of flood, maybe. Now, they've even found a whole town. A lost Roman town has been unearthed. The whole town got the whole town got buried. Archaeologists in southeast England have unearthed a previously unknown Roman town. The town is often finding the town is offering researchers a unique opportunity to understand the development of Roman power and urban life. And then it goes on to say that they had all this technology, you know, for smelting and things that they shouldn't have. And they say, oh, that just tells us that Romans were exporting their technology around the world. But were they, or was this technology already here? Was it just everywhere and what everyone had to use? You know, because everything's put down to Romans, this, Romans, that, Romans spread out, and they, you know, gave all their, you know, technology and wonderments to the world. But, you know, we're not told that the Romans went to South America, yet there's South American, in South America there's buildings that look very Roman. So there's something going on with this story. But back to, I digress. This is all about how do things get buried. So it's saying, you know, things 7 meters underground, a whole town underground, and the only explanation we get from science is wind blowing around sand and dust, you know, rivers rising, leaving silt, and basically humans leaving rubbish around. Alrighty, so let's have a bit of a closer look at this. Alright, so here's just some pictures I wanted to show you of actual archaeological digs. Now this one you can see out in the middle of nowhere, like most of them are. But when you look at the dirt, pretty much just looks like dirt, doesn't it? Now there's no rubble in there. There's no plant decaying material in there. You know, there's no bits of rubbish and broken pottery. There's no, you know, obviously they're uncovering something, but so it could be layer upon layer, but they're telling us that all this dirt should have been made up from rubbish and stuff. You can clearly see there's meters there that's just dirt. You know, that would be something that would be more indicative of a mud flood. Here's another one. And again, That's a wall, but you can see where they're excavating the dirt. It's just clean dirt, guys. You know, there's a few, I don't know, these are just their markers, their tape markers or something, but apart from what they're looking for, it's just clean dirt. You know, where's all the rubble? Look at that. There's like one stone in there. You know, if this was made up from rubbish over thousands of years, then where is it all? This is the thing. Oops. Here's another one. This one, obviously, they're uncovering this bit of, you know, stone and that around there on the bottom. But when you actually look at the dirt, it's not full of rubble. You know, it's just dirt. You can see it everywhere around here. It's just dirt. So the story they're telling us is not true. Look at this church. This is in the USA. Forgotten exactly where. You can see this is up on the ground, and underneath it, just dirt. You know, so the story of, you know, I mean, this is America. Obviously, we know America's been populated a lot longer than they tell us, but, you know, they say we build on top of each other, build on top of each other, but it's just sitting on dirt. It's all dirt. There's no rubble in there. And look at this one, same thing. You know, this is under this house. They found like a double tunnel, bridge maybe, I'm not sure. But look, it's just dirt. There's no rubble here. You know, where's all this, you know, thousands of years of rubbish and rubble that's built up this ground level like they tell us? It doesn't exist. Yes, they've built a building on top of another building there. They've done that. But they have only done that because the ground level has risen so high. You can see it's even risen up here. So that's probably a mud flood building too when you look at the side of it. Who knows? But this is the thing. So when you look at the actual excavations, guys, there is no rubble. There's no massive bits of, you know, plant material, because that obviously turns down not into dirt, but it breaks down into more like mulch and peat and bogs and things. This is just dirt. And if they're telling us that's blown in from the desert, that's a lot of dirt to blow in from the desert. A lot of sand. Alrighty. Okay, so let's have a few look at a few examples here of ground level, and this is called Fort Amherst in the UK. And if I come up here, you'll just see this is actually a star fort. I'll just show you quickly. We have a wall coming down here, around here. We have an outer wall here. Up here we have the wall coming and the inside of the wall. Here we have some more triangles, and this is, I would say, would have been the natural moat. It comes along and it goes sort of down under here somewhere and pops out here. Another nice angle there and there. Over here, got the inside wall, a nice angle there. Obviously, it's all been built over, you know, and kind of destroyed a bit. If we come up here, we've got another outside wall here. And even up here, this looks like it's all part of it as well. And if we follow, that's just a road by the looks of it, and then it just looks the angle. But yeah, but that's basically a star fort. There you go. We've always got these. There's a half circle. There's always this sort of geomancy, geometry kind of stuff. But I mean, there that is. So you can see that's a star fort. Okay, and it's been buried. Now, if we go down here, you'll see that the levels here, obviously that's inside the wall. So the walls were either that wide or it's been filled in. And up here, this is the highest part, because if you look around the landscape, it's all flat and low. Okay, and there's even a river here. So where's all this silt built up on the edge? Why is it over here? Okay, you can see this is built up around here. This bit in here is lower. This looks like it goes down and it's lower there, and this is sort of on like a hilltop sort of thing. So why is this fort buried? Are they going, you know, it's almost like the forts, these star forts are being buried, but not the stuff around them. So Yeah, questions. I'll give you another example here. This is in the UK. This is called Claysbrook Castle. If we come down, you'll see again, it's a star fort and it's a massive mound. Let's go to, oh, that was 3D, sorry. So if I come up here, you'll just see, got the star fort here. Comes up in there around this other side. You can see there in the corner. So we've got the base there. This, I don't know, it might be part of the original structure. It might be the citadel. Not really sure. It could have been put in later. And then if we come back a bit, you'll see there's also a lower wall that goes around here. And no doubt there's more out in the landscape, but this is the same as that last place. So this is where the castle is, and you can clearly see that's a hill. Right, that's clearly a mound. So why is everything else around it flat? Flat, flat, flat. Flat, 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 flat. You know, all mining, sorry, all farming areas, flat fields, with a big mound in the middle, and of course under that mound we have a star fort. I mean, I think these are actually more than forts. I think they're star cities. But yeah, there you go again. So they're telling us that you know, the ground level's supposed to build up, you know, through plant vegetation and all this stuff. But I mean, why would it just be in the mountains? Sure, they're going to say, okay, well, that was where people were living. So they've just thrown all their rubble and stuff in the ground. But when you look at the dirt, when you actually, I'll get some photos up of some places that have been excavated. The dirt's not full of rubble. It's just dirt, like it's come from somewhere else. So this is the thing, you know, why are we getting these, you know, the things, you know, the ancient places are always covered. This is Fort Moncton. This is obviously another star fort. Let's see there. Now this was right on the edge of the water, and as you can see, this one's not covered at all. Okay, now they're sort of telling us that the ones on the edge of, you know, the water are the ones that are going to be covered the most. You know, we've got silt, we've got sand here, you know, all this kind of stuff. But it's the ones that are inland, you know, where you would think that, you know, there wouldn't be a mound. They're sort of built up, and this one's just not. But there's just, I mean, and they call these castles too. So this one's called Pendennis. Oh, this actually is another star fort, as you can see. But again, a massive mound right on the edge, and this one's near the ocean. So the last one's in the ocean, nothing. This one's right on the ocean as well, but it's completely covered. So it's, you know, it's not. What I'm trying to point out is that what science is, you know, science loves to say, look, everything's the same all over. You know, if you get a condition here, then that condition is the same all over the world. But clearly, we're getting, you know, different things here. We're getting bits on the ocean that are covered up in dirt. We're getting bits in the ocean that aren't covered up in dirt. We're getting bits on you know, in the internals of countries in the land that are covered in dirt, and we're getting bits that aren't covered in dirt. So, you know, has this been done? You know, because we have Göbekli Tepe, and they've said Göbekli Tepe has been proven that it was filled, it was covered up on purpose, it was filled in. You know, is this the same kind of thing? Because this whole thing about, you know, ground levels rising to bury things that, you know, I mean, those things may work over, like, you know, extended periods, like 10,000 years plus, but you know, when we're talking 1,500 years, I mean, look how much this is. Look at this. Look at that hill. And yes, this is another star fort. This is called Beeston Castle. This one's a bit hard to see. I'll probably show it in another video, but just again, it's a castle. So this is obviously the remains of something here that was a castle. Just a massive round hill. You know, if this was done by wind, you would kind of expect it to be longer and a bit pointier, and probably not so vegetated, because if it was in an area where it was constantly being hit by wind, it would be hard for the vegetation to sort of get that thick. You know, if we're talking enough wind to build this mound up, that's a lot of wind, a lot of movement, a lot of dirt moved around. So yeah, what's going on there? Has that been covered on purpose? Now I think there's another one just here. Is that it? Yeah, so this is another mound. And as you can see, this is looks like a newer construction in the middle, but got a few nice angles there. And it again looks like it's been covered. It's on a mound. You can see bits of here, bits of stuff in the landscape. But around it, everything's perfectly flat. So see that? We've got these two mounds. Everything around them perfectly flat. And these two mounds are where we've got ruins. So what is going on? Because even if we talk about mud flood, you would expect the mud flood to cover things, you know, evenly. If it was a flood, it would have to be very deep to get to the top of this, but you would think it would cover things evenly. You know, obviously if it came up against buildings and structures, it would, you know, make mounds and things. But this doesn't look like that kind of a scenario, does it? It looks like these have been covered and buried on purpose or something. You know, we hear a lot about mound builders and the mounds and the mound builders and all this stuff. You know, were they mound builders or were they you know, site buriers? You know, this is just another one. Again, it's another star fort, but I'll go into the star fort thing later. But again, this one's on the edge of the coast. You can see, you know, we've got ancient structures here, and you can see it builds up. Okay, so if this was wind, you would expect, you know, you'd expect stuff like this to be built up against a wall. But then, you know, is that being filled in? I mean, are these different? Just doesn't look right, you know, for wind and stuff. I mean, look at these, look at the angles on that wall. What if we're talking wind? You wouldn't see that wall. That would be covered because the wind would hit against it and would slowly just build up. So yeah, and then of course, again, everything around it is perfectly flat. So this is what I'm talking about. So there obviously needs to be more investigation done, but it looks like we've got all these sites everywhere, ancient sites, star forts, star cities, plus other, you know, megalithic sites all over the planet, and they've all been covered up by dirt. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them. So I think a lot of it you could, you know, when we're talking about certain regions, you know, especially valleys and that, you can talk about mud floods. But looking at this in the UK, I mean, the UK is a fairly flat country, and you just got these mounds everywhere. That does not seem like it would happen through a mud flood or anything like that. You know, there's no mountain ranges really. There's a bit through here, but yeah, so what do you think about ground levels, guys? I'm going to get into this a bit more, but so there we have it. Science is telling us it's built up by human population, you know, bringing in dirt, bringing in rubbish, leaving it all lying around, plants growing up and dying and building up, and sand and silt and stuff. Do you believe that's true? What are your theories on how, you know, the dirt did build up in certain places? Well, obviously, we've got places that are buried, you know, mud flooders. But then we've got all these mounds and covered up star cities, which seem to be just covered up in, you know, just a specific area. You know, it's not like the whole region around them's covered up. It's just the specific area that seems to be on a hill. There's another one. Alrighty, guys. Hope I explained that properly. I'll definitely look into this and make more videos. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Please leave me a comment, like, subscribe, share this video. If you look in the more section, you'll also see I've got an Instagram channel and a Facebook page, so go ahead and like those. There's also autodidactic t-shirts you can get to support me, help my research, as it does take a lot of time, but I do enjoy it, and I really enjoy getting it out to you guys. So I hope you enjoy it. Have an amazing day, and I shall catch you on the next upload. Bye for now.